Good afternoon, class. Today we are going to learn how to make chocolate chip cookies. And the cool thing about chocolate chip cookies is that there's a ton of math throughout the baking process. Not only are we going to learn about adding, subtracting, multiplying fractions, but we're also going to practice our conversions with teaspoons, tablespoons, and cups. So, everyone go wash your hands and preheat your oven to 375 degrees, and then we'll get started. As we're working today, if you ever need time to pause, rewind, and see any of the footage we've gone over, please do, as it'll help make sure that you understand both the baking process and our use with fractions and conversions. So to begin, let's go over the ingredients that we are going to need today. The first ingredient that we will need today is 2 1/4 cup of flour. So to begin, let's make 2 1/4 into a whole number. That means that we are going to make it so it is only a fraction with a numerator, the number on top, and the denominator, the number on bottom. Now, in order to do this, we multiply the largest number, our whole number 2, by our denominator 4. And then we add it to our numerator, which is 1. Meaning, we go through 2 times 4 plus 1. And that gives us 9/4 cups. So we will be using 9/4 cups of flour, which is the same as 2 1/4 cup of flour. Our next ingredient is baking soda. And we will only need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. The next ingredient that we will need is sugar. And for sugar, we are going to need 3/4 of a cup. Now, let's do a conversion with 3/4 of a cup and find another way to demonstrate this fraction. One way to show fractions in a new manner is by multiplying both the numerator, 3, and the denominator, 4, by the same number. This will not change our fraction because 2 over 2, 1 over 1, 3 over 3, regardless of whatever number is both in the top and bottom, will give us the same fraction. So, for example, let us multiply 3 over 4 by 2 over 2. While it seems as though we are doubling, the amount is still the same. And we'll show this later when we're pouring it into our mixture. So if we multiply 3 by 2 and 4 by 2, we get 6/8 cups, which is the exact same measurement, just a different representation of the fraction. Our next ingredient that we will need is brown sugar. For brown sugar, again, we will need 3/4 a cup, which, as we demonstrated earlier, is the same as 6/8 of a cup. Our next ingredient for our chocolate chip cookies is vanilla. For vanilla, we will only need 1 teaspoon. Next, we will need 2 large eggs. So from our carton here, we will pull 2 eggs when we are mixing our ingredients together. Finally, and my favorite part, is the chocolate chip cookies. We will need 1 bag, which gives us 2 cups. Our last ingredient that we will add is butter. And butter is unique because we have a lot of different ways that we can measure butter. For instance, 1 stick of butter is 1/2 a cup. So if we have 1/2 a cup plus another 1/2 a cup, together we get 1 cup. And our recipe calls for 1 cup of butter. Another labeling of butter is, as we can see at the top, by tablespoons. There are 8 tablespoons in each stick of butter. So let's look at this in 2 different ways of fractions. If we have 1/2 of 1 cup, we also have 8 out of our 16. Now, where did we get this 16 value? Well, let us count up each portion of the butter. So if we have 8 on top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we have 8 on bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that gives us 8 plus 8, which is 16. Another way to get the 8 plus 8 equals 16 is by multiplying 8 times 2, because we have 2 sticks of butter. So 8 times 2 gives us 16, meaning if we have 8 tablespoons of butter plus another 8 tablespoons of butter, meaning 16. One stick is 8/16. Now, another way to think of 8/16 is 1/2. As we can see, there are multiple ways to represent the same fraction. Now that we have our ingredients, it's time to start mixing. As we're mixing our ingredients together, we're going to add up some of our ingredients to see the different types of fractions we come up with. Now that we've familiarized ourselves with our ingredients and some of the different fractions that they hold, let's look into some of the conversions that we'll be using as we make our cookies. First, let's look at 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. This is shown in our butter. Remember that we saw that each stick of butter is half of a cup. And in each stick, there are 8 tablespoons. So this portion here is 1/8 of the entire stick of butter. In this 1/8 stick of butter, there are 3 teaspoons. So if we want to know how many teaspoons are in this stick of butter, we will multiply 3 times all 8 tablespoons. And that gives us 24 teaspoons in this stick of butter. So this stick of butter represents 1 stick, 1/2 of a cup, 8 tablespoons, and 24 teaspoons. See, there are so many different ways in which we can divide up pieces of our ingredients. The next conversion that we're going to look at is 1 cup equals 16 tablespoons. We briefly mentioned this before when we were talking about our butter. Remember, our recipe calls for 1 cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. Each stick of butter has 8 tablespoons. So you have 8 tablespoons here, plus another 8 tablespoons here, equals 16 tablespoons, which is equivalent to 1 cup. Our final conversion today is 1 cup equals 48 teaspoons. As we learned earlier, we have 1 cup equals 16 tablespoons. Also, that 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. So, if we think about 1 tablespoon has 3 teaspoons, and if there are 48 tablespoons in 1 cup, that would mean multiplying 3 times 16 equals 48. That is how we're able to get 1 cup equals 48 teaspoons. See all the different ways that we can represent our measurements for our cookies. Now it is time to start baking. We will need our measuring cups and the teaspoons and tablespoons that we talked about earlier. So we are also going to need a bowl, 1 for wet and 1 for dry. And as we add these in, we are going to remember our measurements and our different conversions. To begin, we're going to mix our flour and baking soda into a bowl. So we're going to start here with our dry bowl. So as we can recall, we need 2 1/4 cups of flour. So there's a couple ways that we can do this. As we recall, there is 2 1/4 cup. It is the same as 9 1/4. So let's try this way. Let's pour in 9/4 cups. So right here, we have our 1/4 cup, and we are going to do 9 of these. As this may take longer, we'll see that it is the same as 2 1/4. Okay, so we can count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 more, 7, 8, So we just did 9 1/4 of a cup, which is the same as 2 1/4 of a cup. Now that we have finished with our flour, it is time to add our baking soda. And our baking soda requires 1 teaspoon. So as you can recall, we have 3 teaspoons is the same as 1 tablespoon. We're going to use a smaller teaspoon. So we will get 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And you want to, for baking, it is important to be exact. So we want to get our proper measurements and scrape it along the edge. And then we'll dump it in with our flour. The next 2 ingredients that we are going to work with are brown sugar and regular sugar. Each of these call for 3/4 of a cup. So let's do some adding with our fractions. So we have 3/4 a cup of regular sugar and 3/4 a cup of brown sugar. Because the denominator, the number at the bottom, is the same, we can add straight across. Meaning we add the top 2 numbers, 3 and 3, and the bottom number stays the same, 4. Meaning we do 3 plus 3 over 4, which gives us 6 over 4. So we have 6/4 a cup of sugar. 6/4 a cup equals 1 1/2 a cup. So if we have 3/4 of one mixture in our bowl and 3/4 of another mixture of our bowl, and we put them together and mix them, we will have 1 1/2 cups of mixture in our bowl. So let's show our 1 1/2 cups. Okay, we will now add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So meaning we will add 3 1/4 cups. So 1, 2, 3. We put 3 1/4 cups of sugar. Next, we are going to use our brown sugar. And again, we could use 3 1/4 cups. Another way to look at 3 1/4 is a 1/2 a cup plus 1/4 of a cup equals 3/4 of a cup. So for the brown sugar, we'll add 1/2 plus 1/4, which equals 3/4. That is because 1/2 is the same as 2/4. 2/4 plus 1/4 equals 3/4. So you'll add that now. And when you're working with brown sugar, it's important to compact your brown sugar. Okay, so we want to put some in, and we want to press it down. Remember, our hands are clean, so that's okay. And we'll add a little more. Got a big chunk here. And we'll press down on our brown sugar. Press it in, and then we dump it. So we just added 1/4. Now, it is time to add 1/2. With a little bit of a mess here, that's okay. So we add 1/2. Press it down. And add a little more. Press it down. Until we reach the full amount. So we just added 3/4 cup of brown sugar and 3/4 cup of white sugar or regular sugar, and that then equals 1 1/2 cups, which is what the mixture we have in here. Now that we've added our 2 sugars and got a little bit of a mess here, it is time for us to add our 2 sticks of butter. So recall, 1 stick is 1/2 a cup, so you'll add 1/2 a cup of butter. Into our bowl, and then we will add another 1/2 a cup of butter, which is the same when we put those 2 together as 1 cup, which is what our recipe calls for. 1/2 a cup plus another 1/2 a cup equals 1 whole cup of butter. Next, we are going to add our vanilla. And for vanilla, we need 1 teaspoon, which is what is the same thing that we used for our baking soda. So we're going to carefully pour right over the bowl. We'll pour our vanilla and we'll dump it in. Now that we've added 3/4 cup of sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of butter, and a teaspoon of vanilla, it is time to beat the ingredients together. In this case, we get to use a new tool. Here we have our mixer. 1, make sure it's safely plugged into the outlet, and 2, remember to start at a low speed before increasing. So we'll begin now beating our butter, and we want to go until it is well blended and softened. Go ahead and pause the video and resume once you have beaten your butter, sugars, and vanilla together. Now that we have a creamy mixture, it is time to slowly add in our flour and baking soda. As we're doing this, carefully lift your flour and gradually pour it in. Remember to hold on sturdy to your mixer as we work. Continue mixing until all of your flour has been added. We've mixed in almost all of our ingredients, and now we're down to my favorite step. We are going to add our chocolate chips. Pour the whole bag in, which is 12 ounces or 2 cups, and then stir with a spoon. Once we've reached that step, we are going to plate our cookies. Now that we've stirred in our chocolate chips, it's time to place our cookies on our baking sheets. So take your spoon, grab a spoonful of cookie dough, push it together with our clean hands, and place it on your cookie sheet. Now do that until your sheet is full, and then we'll carefully place them in the oven for about 9 to 10 minutes until they're golden brown. Now we've patiently waited for our cookies to bake, and they are almost ready. While we're waiting, we're going to do a big cleanup of all of our ingredients. Put away our unused ingredients, wash our cups, tablespoons, and teaspoons, and put everything away so we are ready to eat. Also, while we're waiting, let's practice some of our conversions. First, we saw that 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. Then, we used our butter to show that 1 cup equals 16 tablespoons. This occurred because we had 2 sticks of butter, and each stick of butter was 1/2 a cup, meaning 1/2 a cup plus another 1/2 a cup equals 1 whole cup. And in each 1/2 a cup stick of butter, there were 8 tablespoons, meaning 8 tablespoons plus 8 tablespoons equals 16 tablespoons in 1 cup. So 2 sticks of butter, 1/2 cup, another 1/2 a cup equals 16 tablespoons. Finally, we saw that 1 cup equals 48 teaspoons. This occurred because there are 3 teaspoons in 1 tablespoon, and there are 16 tablespoons in 1 cup. That happened because we did 3 teaspoons times the 16 tablespoons, which equals 48 teaspoons. So 1 cup has 48 teaspoons or 16 tablespoons. Look at all those conversions from just using 1 cup. Now I think our cookies are almost ready, so let's go check if they're golden brown and then carefully take them out of the oven. Our cookies are done and they look delicious. Now, before we dive in, let's practice our fractions one more time. From our plate, we can see there are 12 cookies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, let's take a look at each of our rows and columns. Looking at our rows, we see there are 1, 2, 3 rows of cookies, meaning 1 row is 1/3 of the amount of cookies total. In each row, there are 4 cookies. So 1 row, which is 1/3 of our total cookies, is 4/12 of our total because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 cookies out of all 12 cookies. Now let's look at our columns. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 columns, meaning each row is 1/4 of our total number of cookies. If we look at one column, we see there are 1, 2, 3 cookies, meaning 3/12 of our total number of cookies. Now, if we add a row, 3/12 plus another 3/12. That gives us 6/12, which is also 1/2 of the sheet of cookies. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6/12 equals 1/2 of the total number of cookies. See how many sets of fractions we can come up with just by dividing up one sheet of cookies? Now, I think you guys have done a well-deserved amount of fractions and conversions today, and it's time to enjoy. Bon appetit! Today we covered a lot of fractions and conversions, and we made a pretty in-depth recipe. If at any point you want any extra practice, rewatch the video and practice your steps. Also see if there are any more fractions that you can come up with as you look over all the different conversions we did. Good luck and happy eating!